Hi there. In this lesson, we'll talk about that very first outreach to a prospect. Now, whether it be calling or emailing, that initial outreach can be a bit intimidating. You want to stand out, you want to establish trust, and you want to leave a lasting impression. So that's a big job. There's a few things to remember in that initial contact. Be human, timeliness, don't sell, personalization, and keep it relaxed. And let's talk about what each of these things mean. First of all, this isn't B2B or B2C. It's H to H, human to human. And sure, robots are cool, but not when it feels like we're talking to one. So make sure that you be human. Establish a real connection on a deep level just by being personal. So for example, you could wish someone a happy weekend, or maybe even talk a little bit about how awesome their company's product or service is. Just make sure you're doing it authentically. Timeliness is extremely important. Is SEO even relevant to them? When was the last product launch, and what product were they launching? When was the last blog post they published? Make sure that when you reach out to them, you're not referring to a piece of content that's old and no longer relevant. Don't sell. Instead, be helpful. Now, I know this sounds a bit counterintuitive, but you really shouldn't sell. This isn't about you. It's about them. So be helpful. Provide some value. For example, instead of just scheduling a follow-up meeting, when you do schedule it, offer to provide an analysis that shows their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Personalize. Remember that each prospect is different. Refer to a specific challenge or a product or a piece of industry news that the prospect is encountering, and have a specific solution ready to mention. They've heard tons of generic pitches and get lots of generic phone calls and emails. If you personalize, you'll stand out. And keep it relaxed. Stay natural, stay relaxed, be helpful, don't sell. Remember, when you make that initial contact, really all you're doing is trying to determine if both parties could mutually benefit from a relationship. Now, there are three basic forms of initial contact: email, phone, and of course, in person. Generally speaking, however, in terms of establishing contact, we usually decide between email or phone communication. Now, some of us will initially jump on the cold email approach, while others are diving into a cold call. Your strategy will vary based on what you feel most comfortable with, but let's review the pros and cons when it comes to both. Let's start with email. The pros of email are that it's visual. It allows your prospect to consider the offer. It provides the prospect with adequate time to research your company and your service. Also, emails are easily forwardable, so they can be forwarded to key stakeholders who might be a better fit to speak with, the decision makers, influencers, etc. Now, there's some cons when it comes to email as well. Email is a cluttered space, so it might be a bit more difficult to grab a prospect's attention. Also, we have to follow up multiple times before we get a response, and often emails are easily deleted or even forgotten. Now, of course, there's some pros and cons to phone contact as well. With a phone call, calls are a little bit less common than emails, so you might grab a prospect's attention quickly and a bit more easily. It allows you to make a more intimate connection, and it can offer a chance to develop rapport. And it's often more timely than email communication, and it can accelerate the time it takes to move a customer through the sales funnel. Now, there's some cons of the phone call as well. Some prospects may feel overwhelmed by a call and might be less inclined to consider a pitch or even schedule a second meeting. Of course, there's no guarantee a prospect will pick up, and a lot of times voicemail can be just as cluttered as email. Successful initial contact strategies often incorporate both email and phone call to take advantage of the pros and minimize the cons. So if we're going to send an initial contact email that gets open, here are some basics to include. A captivating subject line. Make sure you've got a subject line that really piques the prospect's interest, but also make sure you avoid those cliche hooks. Have a very personal opening. We should begin our email by saying something about them, not about us. Remember that this process is all revolved around your prospect and determining if there's a way that you can add value to their business. Show why they should care by creating a connection. In your opening, they should learn why you're reaching out to them, but they also need to know why they should care about your services. And have a clear call to action. Maybe suggest a concrete time to connect or ask a close-ended question, such as, do you have 10 minutes to catch up tomorrow, or are you available for a half hour next week? Now, if we decide to call a prospect, even if it's in conjunction with an email or if it's not, here are some things to remember. First, establish rapport. Don't be afraid to be personal. Ask how a prospect's weekend was or what team they're rooting for. These kind of personal touches really help develop a more meaningful relationship, and it helps to establish some likability and some trust. Leverage their pain points. Dive into those pain points during the call. They should know that your primary business is to help them ease their pain. And so if you can help them understand their key issues, you can better position yourself as a problem solver. Create curiosity. Ask questions about their business and ask more than tell. Again, the conversation should revolve around your prospect. Let your prospect talk and keep it brief and wrap it up. Find a calendar time to book a follow-up meeting. Don't take up 30 minutes now. Just create initial contact and then ask, hey, would you have 30 minutes to maybe follow up this week? What works best for you? So hopefully now you have a bit more confidence when it comes to that initial outreach. Thank you.